Hello there, many thanks for joining us on TVC Breakfast. It's now time to bring you the reports from the business desk this morning. Now we're looking at the economic outlook for the year 2021. Now in Nigeria, we see economic activities normalizing this year. As a result of this, we also expect growth to range between 1.3% and 3.7%. Key economic activities to watch out for this year include the electioneering, removal of subsidies and floatation of the Naira. While we also see inflation moderating this year, we expect the CBN to also remain accommodative. However, external pressures could result in rate hikes. Fiscal metrics could also improve this year on the back of recovery of oil revenue. However, we hold a different view in terms of subsidies, considering the fact that the electoral season is already here. Now, for the external scene, we see room for depreciation in both the official and parallel market. However, recoveries in the oil and gas sector, maximization of the e-Naira could also help keep the parallel market in check. Well, joining me now to discuss this and much more on the Breakfast Show this morning, I have Olusegun Elemo, Public Finance and Policy Analyst. Thank you very much for joining us on the Breakfast Show this morning, Segun.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and Happy New Year to you and the viewers.
A Happy New Year to you. Now, let's start our conversation with the expected GDP forecast now. Last year, we had varying forecasts from the IMF and then the World Bank, and even the latest reports from the World Bank also saying Nigeria is going to experience one of the highest rates of inflation this year in terms of the global front, and also the state of government here in Nigeria. How much of a catalyst do you see the country experiencing this year, especially with regards to the budget and government stance on revenue generation?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, while we expected that there will be some significant growth in the GDP, recall that the data from the NBS for Q3 shows some encouraging growth. I think the GDP year on year grew by 4.3%. But going by the data of NBS, even though a lot of the stakeholders feel quite unsettled with some of these statistics, but I mean, we give it to NBS and we go by that. So there is high expectation in that regard. But to contextualize what is economic structure is to say that in 2020 that the GDP, total GDP was about $432 billion, and the AFDB, the African Development Bank, in 2021 had forecasted 1.9% growth for Nigeria. Of course, that was also as a result of COVID. If you go by that AFDB forecast, you will expect that the Nigeria, GDP size by the end of 2021 will be around $40 billion. Even though the NBS is saying that we might experience something higher than that right now. But the World Bank now says that the GDP forecast for 2022 is around 2.8%, while the IMF was a little bit conservative and putting it at 2.7%. I was at the IMF Economic Outlook program that was held in Lagos last year towards the end of the year, and there was a general consensus that IMF was trying to be conservative about that figure, especially because there's still so much uncertainties with COVID, and then the price of crude. There was not so much clarity as to whether it will climb, whether we will experience high volatility and all of that. But if we go by the World Bank 2.8% forecast for Nigeria for 2022, it will mean that the total size of our GDP will be around $452 to $455 billion by the end of 2022. The Nigerian budget for 2022 is 17 trillion. That is about $41 billion. that would mean that $41 billion, which Nigeria intends to spend in 2022, is for perhaps maybe would be 10% or about 10% of the size of the GDP in 2022. I'm talking about the total size, for 2022. So we are really not going to be depending on government spending. We are going to be leveraging on how much we're able to export out of Nigeria, and then how much import we're able to cut down, and then we will be, leveraging on foreign direct investments. I think those are the, key factors that we will be leveraging on for 2022 if we must experience that significant growth.
Exactly, Shago. And now that we're looking at subsidies also going to be removed this year, it's also the year that precedes the election, and a whole lot more. The atmosphere is tense in terms of economic outlook as well. We cannot say for certain how things are likely going to pan out. But one of the biggest stories we've also had starting the new year, and this week we're also looking at the appointment of Doyin Salami as Chief Economic Advisor, looking at a task ahead, maneuvering through all of these indices and realities that we have to face at this point in time. Do you anticipate any change in the body language of government in terms of how we respond to advice? Now, looking at the role he's filling, this remains an advisory role, and this isn't the first time that we're having hopes raised high with appointment of heads of Economic Advisory Council who we think would understand the business of running an economy. But are you optimistic that we're going to see some change as so many people forecast? And also looking at the fact that the MPC too has also left rates unchanged as well. How do you see things panning out, especially when there are different calls from different quarters?
Well, thank you. For Dr. Doyin Salami, I've interacted with him, maybe not personally, but in different forums that we've been together, and he was also at the IMF Economic Outlook in Lagos last year. Yes, he has capacity, he's competent, and I'm sure he will bring some breath of fresh air into the system. But like playing an advisory role, he is not the one that will implement these policies. He will recommend his perceived direction, which he feels the economy should go. He will recommend some key, changes that he feels, will catalyze the economy. But whether those recommendations will be implemented is another thing entirely. And as you mentioned, there have been different, appointments like this to just. But I feel that the policymakers themselves, try to, put up a posture, that they have, sound and competent people running the economy. Whether these policymakers, the implementers of these policies themselves, are going to listen to, the advisory of somebody like, because I know that for a fact that Dr. Doyin is going to offer, very, frank advisory. And that may not sit well with those implementing, public policies.
Exactly.
And then, there's election around the corner, and a lot of things that, will be politically considered, rather than economically, justified. With regards to the MPC, I think that there are issues that they need to look into. Inflation, for instance, there is rising production costs, not just in Nigeria, but across the world. There is, logistics costs around transportation, energy costs, then, of course, subsidy removal, the exchange rate, the forex issues, as well as the drop in external reserves. I think those are the main issues for the MPC to look into.
Well, it's a full task ahead for government, a different strata to face this year, and we just keep our fingers crossed to see how things play out. But most importantly, we don't have to make the same old mistakes we've made over time. It's time to do things differently. Thank you very much for your time at the Breakfast Show this morning. Olusegun Elemo, it's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.